Hello, Lindsay Drachenberg here. Today we are doing our 6th interactive advanced concept presentation for Chem 125. I don't have my whiteboard, but I did kind of do a sheet that I will reference throughout in terms of the pasta rocket that we are going to make. So as it hints on the side for what is needed, we have a few items. So we have a mason jar, we have a lid, marinara base, but you can't really see, but there's holes poked in the middle there. We have a noodle. I couldn't find ziti at my local supermarket, so I just cut off the bottom of the panini or whatever noodle I found. Then I have a teaspoon, I have some yeast here, I have hydrogen peroxide, and then I have my lighting utensil. I am not using the screw-on lid because as the video stated, that would cause the glass to possibly break, so we do not want to do that. So as I said, we'll get into what it means to have a hybrid rocket after we do the experiment. I will say before that the hydrogen peroxide is our oxidizer, and then the pasta is the solid fuel, and then the yeast is what is going to interact with the peroxide when we mix them together. So on my sheet I wrote over here that first we put in the hydrogen peroxide, then we add the yeast, we mix it up a little bit, and then we balance our pasta. I had some issues getting the pasta to balance, so hopefully this works. Tissue you back down. So the video that was linked, it didn't have a specific measurement for the hydrogen peroxide, so we'll do between a half and a fourth and a half. Okay, put the cap on, set that off to the side. Next, we're going to take our yeast. This is a teaspoon I have here. We're going to do about 3/4 of that. Then we'll put it in there. It's starting to react. I'm going to try to balance this. Mix it around. Now we just need to wait for the bubbles to happen. And then I'm going to light the noodle. Notice how I'm lighting the noodle and not the oxygen that's coming out. Okay, you can't see it because of how bright it is in here, but the flame is going, as you can see there. Oxygen is coming out. It's very bubbly in here as the yeast interacts with the hydrogen peroxide and is used as a catalyzer for breaking apart the extra oxygen that is in hydrogen peroxide compared to air. Yeah, there's a lot of smoke coming out. Don't need the smoke detectors to go off. All right, we're gonna knock that down and then take the lid off so we don't have an explosion. All right, so we did our experiment. I'll set that down and then we will now come back up. All right, so I would say that was a success. As you saw, as this side says, we put our hydrogen peroxide in, then we added the yeast. I had to mix it a little because that starts the reaction in the experiment that was occurring, and then I put the seal on and gave it a good seal. As I said, I didn't use the lid because that would give too much of a seal that could cause the glass to break of the mason jar, and then I put on the cut noodle that I used so it laid flat, and that is the fuel. And then, bam, we had oxygen coming out and we had a flame and smoke. So that's all great, but what does it mean? So as I said before I started the experiment, the liquid hydrogen peroxide is the oxidizer. And it has hydrogen and oxide in its molecular makeup. Pasta is a solid fuel. It is a complex carbohydrate and it is hydrocarbon. And then pasta burns quickly in the presence of this pure oxygen that is created as the yeast interacts with our hydrogen peroxide and liberates the oxygen from the hydrogen peroxide through the chemical reaction. And then the oxygen, you couldn't really see, but it was coming up through the hole in the lid and then subsequently through the hole in the pasta. And then, yeah, as I said, the extra oxygen breaks off and then bubbles up and out of the hole. The cool thing with that is if I would have kept the lid on and then put on a different piece of pasta. This was my backup, but it would have kept going because the fuel, putting more fuel on would have kept it going. With pasta being the solid, we have limited explosion worry, but as I said, this was a hybrid rocket, which was discovered about 75 years ago, and hybrid is unique because it uses a solid fuel, which was our noodle, and then a liquid, which is the hydrogen peroxide. So we can shut it off, as I did, so I could talk to you without having an explosion happen to my right, when it's a pure rocket, which is what is often used to get to outer space and other more intense in-lab rockets that are made, they can't be shut off. So yeah, we just saw how when hydrogen peroxide interacts with yeast, oxygen is released, put into the solid fuel, we have oxygen that came out, and then we have a rocket. Thank you.